My name's Keith Rucker. So for this episode here, I think what we're going to work on is trying to finish up the last couple of steps in this height adjustment mechanism that goes on the Vance planer matcher that we've been working on for a while. So pretty much everything is assembled. It's ready to go down. The last thing to get this thing 100% done is there's a guard that basically needs to be built to cover up this whole chain mechanism and protect it, keep sawdust and what have you from getting up in it. So looking at the old original on the old machine, we could tell that there was actually a piece of wood, a wooden guard that was in here. It was actually rotted out of the machine that we had, but you could tell from the little screws that were holding it in place, and actually there was a little bit of remains of rotten wood up in there. We could tell that it was a wooden guard that fit up in here. And even though we don't have an example of what the original looked like, it's pretty easy to kind of look at how this is built and determine how that old guard was built as well. So we're going to go through and show you how we do that. And to make it out of, I've just got a regular piece of 2x4. I've already cut this to length, and now the task is to kind of mold and make this thing so that it will fit up in here just right. So tonight's episode is really going to be a little bit more woodworking oriented, but showing you how we can use wood as a guard, at least on this machine. So the first step in doing this is we need to take this piece of 2x4 and get the dimensions right. So the thickness and the width. And I know from measuring that this is about 1.25 inches high. The 2x4, of course, is a little bit smaller than that, so we need to take some thickness off of it, and then we'll have to get a measurement on the width to get that to size, and then we'll go through the rest of the process to notch out the groove in here for the chain to go in so it can move freely. It'll be solid in the center but notched out, and then also cut out the areas for the sprockets to go in here while still leaving a solid wood covering the top. So we're going to take this piece of wood over to our thickness planer, and we're going to plane this board down to the proper thickness. Alright, so again, this piece of wood is about 1.5 inches thick. Of course, the 2x4 is originally 2 inches thick by 4 inches wide rough cut, but when it goes through the planer to make it smooth, it takes 1/4 inch off of each surface, which is why a 2x4 actually measures 1.5 inches by 3.5. Because you're planing off that rough cut. The actual 2x4 is in reference to the rough cut piece of lumber. So we're going to go ahead and we need to take about 1/4 inch total off of the thickness, and I'm going to take it off of both sides just so that we have a nice smooth surface to work with. And the tool I'm going to use to do this with is this wood planer. This is just a little Delta 12 or 13 inch, I can't remember, wood planer. You know, a lot of us, we call these lunchbox planers or little portable planers. We call them lunchbox because they're about the size of a big lunchbox. Okay, maybe a big one, but still, you know, whereas in a bigger commercial shop, you would have a stationary, really heavy-duty machine that really isn't portable. These are real handy machines to have. You know, I'd love to have a big, heavy-duty planer in my shop and do some wider boards, but you know, a lot of the guys out there tell me that even if they have a big one, they really like these for just being able to pick it up and take it to a job site. And it also actually does a very nice fine finish on it. So we've got this in finish mode, so it's making about 90 cuts per inch. And it's loud, obnoxiously loud, but we'll go ahead and turn it on and get the planing. Alright, so with the piece of wood now to thickness, the next thing I need to do is rip it to the proper width. And it needs to be about 3 1/8 inch wide. So I've got my fence set up over here, I'm using, by the way, this is a Delta / Crescent 1214 saw. They call it 1214 saw because it takes a 12-inch blade that it'll take in the machine, and it'll actually dip all the way down. But you can put a 14-inch blade in this machine, but the blade will stick up. It won't go all the way down when you do it, but it has the capacity to go up to 14-inch. So they call it the 1214. It takes a 1-inch arbor. It's a three-phase, I think 5 horsepower saw. It's a pretty good size, heavy-duty industrial type saw. So what I'm going to do now is I've got this set up, and we're just going to come in here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I just want to get a good square clean edge on this side, and then we'll set the fence to 3 1/8 inches and rip it on the other side to get the right width. Just a little bit of safety with a table saw. Anytime you're using it, one thing I see a lot of times is people raise that blade way up high, and when you're using a table saw, just raise the blade up just high enough to clear the top of your piece of wood. When you got a blade sticking way up here, that's just a blade that makes it much easier for your hand or something get caught up into. So adjust that height appropriately for the piece of work that you're working on. So we've got that up just a little over that, and I've got a push stick here that I can go through here. This is wide enough I could probably just run my hand through here, but you know what, guys, I only got 10 fingers. I want to keep them all, so I'm going to use this little push stick. So let's get this cut. Okay, so I've done a little bit of layout work now. So what I did was I know that these two height adjustment screws are 26 1/2 inches apart. So what I did was I took my board here and I found the center, and then working off of the center, I laid off 2 lines that are 26 1/2 inches apart here, and then found the center of that and marked those center holes. That is where the hole is going to go through, where we need to have the screw go through. But what I really need to do is I actually need to carve out a circular socket in here for this sprocket to go up into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a Forstner bit, which is a bit like this right here. I've got one that's 3 inches in diameter. It's over on my drill press. This is a 2 1/2 here, but same type drill. And we're going to go in here, and I've got it set up on my drill so it goes down almost all the way through, but leaves a little thin strip of wood on the top, which will be our cover. So we're going to go over to the drill press now, and we're going to actually cut out the circular sockets that will fit over those sprockets. So now we're over at our Atlas drill press. This is just a regular little bench top drill press. By the way, if you're looking for a machine to do a restoration on and you haven't done any restorations, you just want a fairly simple machine to get started with, a drill press is an excellent first restoration machine. They're fairly simple. You can pick them up pretty cheap. I just mentioned that. This is one that I restored several years ago. You can also pick these up used, pretty gnarly looking drill press pretty cheap and turn it into something a lot nicer. And this is an old one, I think probably made in about 1950s, I'm guessing, maybe a little bit earlier than that. Before I got this, I had a modern Lowe's Delta drill press. It cost a couple $100. Man, the thing was just loud. I hate to say it, but it was kind of sloppy. I got this drill press and it's just nice and quiet and smooth. This machine here, is older than me, and it, after doing a little bit of work to it, ran so much better than a brand new, probably made in China, Delta drill press. Nothing against Delta. Delta made a lot of great machines. I just like their old stuff better than their new. So we're just going to come in here, and again, I have my stop set here already, so I can just go down, hit the stop, and find that center there. Yeah, that's pretty good right there. And we'll just go right down through this with this Forstner bit. So my belt's slipping. Actually, I haven't used this. Yeah, it's real loose. I haven't used this machine a lot since I've moved. So let me tighten this belt up. It's just loosening up a set screws is on the hinge back here. I need to get a pry bar, and we'll be right back to this. Much better. So now we're over here on the band saw, and just like with the table saw, you want to adjust this height adjustment here, your guides, so that it's just big enough for the piece of wood to go up underneath, and that just helps protect yourself as much as also helping to guide the blade to cut. So I've already kind of laid out my lines here. I'm just going to cut those off. So we're coming along good now. Of course, this will be the bottom, and so it'll kind of come over the plates like this. But the next thing we have to do is we need to cut out a notch in here to make room for this chain down in here. So I did a quick couple of measurements, and it needs to be about a 3/4 by 3/4 inch notch cut out of the bottom. So it'll just kind of just cut out 2 notches that'll go all the way down, you know, this piece of wood. And to do that, well, I did that where you couldn't see it on camera. So a notch here and a notch here, and it'll go all the way down. And to do that, I mean, we could put a dado blade on the table saw and do it, but I'm just going to do this making 2 cuts. So we'll go down this way, and then we'll you know, rip it the other way, and just basically cut that notch out is how we're going to go about doing that. So I'll set my saw blade up 3/4 of an inch, and then set my fence over 3/4 of an inch, make 2 cuts, and I'm not too worried if we don't have a perfect flush cut in there, because this is on the bottom, it's not going to be seen. So if it's a little bit deep and it scores into the wood a little bit, no big deal. Let's get it set up on the table saw. So the first thing we're going to do is come in here and set the height, and we'll just lower the blade down, and I'm going to use one of the teeth here, try to get it up at the high part of the arc, and I just want to go just a touch over 3/4 of an inch. So the next thing we'll do is we'll set our fence to 3/4 of an inch, and you know, I've got a Bestmeyer a fence on this saw, and this is a very high quality fence. A lot of people will make a measurement up here. I've used this fence enough to know that I can trust the scale on here. So I typically am not going to do that. Just for confirmation right now though, I've got this set on 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to come in here, and when you're measuring on a saw blade, if you do measure, you know, this is a cross cut blade, so there's a tooth on it's kind of a angled tooth, and every other tooth is going to cut on one side or the other. So you want to make sure you're measuring off of the tooth that's tilted toward the fence. Come in here and measure, and boom, it's right on 3/4 of an inch, just like the fence says. So we'll turn this on, and you can see how we notch this out. Alright, next, you see we got this little piece here, and we're just going to cut that off on the bandsaw. That's where the chain will wrap around the back. And again, I'm not too worried about how this bottom looks, so we're just going to come in here and rip that right off. Alright, back over to the drill press now. What we need to do is just go ahead and punch these holes all the way through here where the rods will go through. I've already got the center there from that Forstner bit before, and I've got another Forstner bit in here. And you know, the shaft is 3/4 of an inch, so I've actually got a 7/8 bit in there just to give us a little bit of clearance. And alright, so I'm having a hard time getting that Forstner bit. This center hole in here is bigger than the center hole in the Forstner bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a smaller hole through here that will go down through the center. Then I'm going to flip it over and punch it through the other side with the Forstner bit that will center up better on that smaller hole I just drilled. Alright, we about got this done now. So as you can see, you know, it's nice and flat on the bottom. Which will be on the bottom, top here, but this will be on the bottom. But it's notched out on the bottom to give us access for all the chain to move in there while protecting it. And the center strip will butt up against here. So we're going to drop this in place, and nice tight fit. Perfect. So just about done. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually drill 2 holes all the way through this that a screw will go through that will be clamping in place. And then we'll countersink that. I've got some countersunk 1/4-20 machine screws that'll go through here. We'll put a nut on the bottom that'll hold that piece of wood in place. And then we're going to paint all this black. just so that it matches. And once the paint dries, we'll be assembled and ready to go back on the machine. So this is all ready to go back on the machine now. Everything's all buttoned up and covered up. So that's the top. And let's just flip this around. And there you can see the wooden cover that we made. And it's just held in place by a couple of 1/4-20 bolts going through there, our machine screws. And so anyway, we'll go ahead and put this back on the machine. All right, hopefully you'll be able to see this the way the light's coming in this morning. It's not the greatest shot in the world, but we're just going to drop this in place. Get these screws lined up in the bottom. We'll get my crank here, and we'll just start threading this down. Alright, we're touching now. So now we got the bolts in here. We're just going to tighten these down, and this will be installed. Alright, let's that looks good. So that's all done. I do need to machine a couple little gibs to go in here. There's one on the front, one on the back that you can tighten that up a little bit. But that's pretty solid. Looks good. And you know, I think we're going to call this pretty much done. Like I said, I will have to make those little gib plates, but that's a pretty simple thing. Put a little bit more paint on here on this exposed metal, and this last height adjuster here, or pressure plate, is done, which kind of gets me to the point on this machine where I have pretty much the whole upper works completed now. So now I'm to the point where I need to work on getting all the pulleys and shafts, some more bearing work, getting all that done. But we're making good progress on this machine. So with this done, this is really, in my opinion, unless I run into any surprises, this was kind of the last really big, daunting task in the restoration of this machine. So not to say we still don't have a lot of work to do, we do, but this was kind of probably the biggest challenge as far as having to make new parts from scratch on the entire project, and got it checked off the list. So we'll get back to working on this and finishing up this machine here over the next few weeks. Hopefully I have some time to get back in here and let's get this thing knocked out. So thanks for watching.